Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today is your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the economy of Florida, the state of Florida in the United States. Now, Governor Ron DiSantis introduced a number of legislative measures there to make it much harder for illegals to work in Florida, and penalties for companies that would hire them, and making sure they had proper documents. If illegals went to the hospitals to try and get free medical care, that they would be reported, and a lot of these illegals were deported to other states or outside of the US. But when Governor Ron DeSantis announced these measures, the usual doom and gloom, the economy of Florida will just disappear into the abyss, and there'll be no one to do the work. Nothing will happen. Nothing anywhere will happen. All work will come to Now, this, of course, is scaremongering nonsense, anybody that knows anything about economics sort of could dismiss it out of hand. But nonetheless, the media and the business press and the economic talking heads, all this sort of thing, all predicted or pretended to, they knew it wasn't the doom and gloom, and it was a terrible decision, and the only way the American economy can survive is by tens of millions of illegal, illiterate peasants from the third world. Now, of course, this is utter nonsense. Very much the globalist shtick, of course, but utter nonsense nonetheless. So what happened since that? So since Governor DeSantis introduced those legislative measures, and again, illegals sort of had to go somewhere else, whether they self-deported or what, it didn't matter, but they had to go somewhere else. Now, many of them would have just reworked through scam labour hire firms, and that's something that the governor needs to clamp down on, I think. But nonetheless, there was a lot less hiring of illegals, and they had to employ legal workers and pay a legal wage. Now, this means that wages on average, increased, particularly at the bottom end, labourers, that sort of stuff, burger flippers or whatever. But it didn't affect the economy negatively. In fact, economic growth has increased fairly noticeably, by the way, in Florida. So now Florida, in terms of economic growth, it's one of, I think the top three states in economic growth terms in the United States since those measures by Governor DeSantis and the legislature were introduced. So the loss of illegal aliens as workers has not affected the economy of the state in any negative way. It's been a plus, and a very noticeable plus, and has brought market competition back into the employment marketplace. Now, market competition, in all levels in a capitalist economy, is very important to putting a real value on things, whether the value is labor or goods or business to business services, or it doesn't matter, but it's the value is more accurately reflected, not perfectly, but more accurately reflected in a market competitive economy. So in a market competitive economy, if you want to attract workers, and you, for example, you want to offer $20 an hour and you don't get any applicants, then you increase to $25 an hour, for example, or $27, whatever it is. But you make the offer attractive, so you do start to have applicants coming in for the job. Or you offer benefits. For example, you could still have a $20 hour wage, but you offer things like more paid vacation time, or more days off, or time off, or more events, or more things like maybe you run a employee food canteen, so the employees can get breakfast or lunch or dinner or something, those sorts of things. So offer other benefits in addition to the wage, and then you'll find people will be interested in working there. And this is again a market competitive economy. Now, what's been happening, and the globalists have encouraged this with mass migration of illiterate third world peasants. What's been happening is that employers have become lazy. They're not looking at competing for skilled workers or how to keep skilled workers. They're not. All they're looking at is how they can acquire cheap labour, whether it's through scam labour hire firms or anything else. So instead of improving the work conditions or the the benefits that are offered, instead of that, they're just going to the government and say more mass migration. Lower the bar, make it easier for us to employ third world peasants and so on. And in that way, they can avoid competing for the workers, and it drives down wages, but it also drives down the merit-based competition for attracting workers or promoting work, for the whole merit-based structure. Now, you add to that affirmative action and diversity, equity, inclusion quotas, and then the entire edifice of merit and market competition in employment falls to pieces. So when diversity, equity, and inclusion is taken out, and when mass migration is taken out of the equation, so there aren't masses of illiterate third world peasants running around, then companies have to refocus on, okay, what do we have to do to attract quality workers? And then in line with that, or in addition to that, they then look at, these same organizations look at efficiencies and quality of work and quality control. So they start looking at it quite differently. And again, all part of this wider market competition and merit thing. So when we look at the economic growth in Florida, after, again, these measures to effectively expel illegal migrant workers and the doom and gloom forecast, what's happened is the opposite. Florida's become a more competitive, I would argue, a more competitive economy with more competitive market competition type attitudes to hiring and merit and so on, and efficiency and the like. And this is why Florida's looking at economic growth, while other states with a much heavier tail of illegal migrants are not. Now, there are other things that go with this. For example, this idea when there are millions of illegals running around, and Florida is an attractive state for Hispanic illegals, because of the Cubans and that sort of stuff. The idea of offering free healthcare, free schooling, food stamps, a whole range of things, housing support, all that stuff being offered to the illegals, runs to the cost of hundreds of millions, many hundreds of millions every year. So when these people deport or self-deport or whatever, then that becomes a huge saving to the public treasury in the state, that they no longer have to disgorge all those funds to give free healthcare to these illegals. That also has a wider effect in terms of the quality of services delivered. It wasn't that many years ago when I could go to the emergency department of a hospital and there'd be nobody there. There'd be like one or two people. That'd be it. The difference, you go to an emergency department in an Australian hospital today, and you can spend 5 or 6 plus hours before a doctor can even see you, let alone get anything done. So once, and again, these are all people that can't speak English, and so interpreters have to be found, and that creates all sorts of log jams. So once the illegals are moved out, then the quality of the services that are delivered to the public also improves, and inherent in that is quality of life. More the roads are less congested, and the public services are less congested, and so on. So it's really an all-round win. So this idea of that if and there's a lot of in President Trump's deportation plans, deportation of illegals, of which there are over 30 million in the US now. His deportation plans are roundly condemned in the business media as no building will ever get built, no road will ever get built, no takeout food shop will ever exist. All this sort of stuff, all these insane and ridiculous assertions. But the reality is, when the landscape resettles and realigns itself with a competitive market economy, which is what it should be, then we'll find that actually conditions will improve, and there'll be more better paid jobs, and there'll be more benefits to workers. For example, I mean, looking at, say, just a local pizza delivery place or a local takeout food place, they complain, just in the local area that I live in, there's nearly always signs saying, help wanted, jobs available, but the conditions they're offering are so piss poor that nobody wants them, and anyone that does take them, doesn't want to do it for more than a day or two. So they end up relying on, black and brown immigrant labour. There wouldn't be that much of it was illegal here, but there's a lot of people here in Australia under, sham and scam labour hire and, scam student schemes, all this sort of stuff. So there's still masses of what is tantamount to illegal immigrants. So, and they're here in the hundreds of thousands in Australia, and they live, 20 to a 2-bedroom apartment, and they're the ones that will do it because they're not offered a fixed roster. We'll give you 20 hours this week, or that's not available. If the pizza place or the takeout food place gets busy, they just call someone up, say, I want you down here now, and they're meant to give a minimum of a 4-hour shift. But if after a couple of hours, if the place calms down again, that it's not so busy, they'll just send them home and just pay them for 2 hours. These sorts of things, they want them there in 5 minutes. They might call up a few people to come along, and whoever's first gets the gig. And if someone comes in 5 minutes late, they don't tell them, hey, look, we've already got somebody, and somebody's already got here. They just send them home when they arrive. This is highly illegal in terms of employment law, but these are the things that are going on, and this is why they find it so hard to not only get people, to keep people. But in their view, they're entitled to do that, and if they can't get enough people to work with the crummy conditions and circumstances that are illegally being imposed on them, then they just demand more mass migration, and that's the solution to everything. So again, and this creates a level of perversion and subversion of economic reality, and which we ultimately all pay for. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.